everybody. Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. I hope you all are having a fabulous Thursday. And welcome to our monthly Cello Tips and Tricks live stream, Q&A, whatever you want to call it. We're here together to have some fun with cello. And one thing you might have noticed, yes, cello tip time. This month's stream is a little earlier than usual, which is really exciting because I am going to be traveling soon to do rehearsals with the rock orchestra because the tour is going to be starting very soon. Hello, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. I hope you're doing fabulously. So this is very exciting. If you don't know about the rock orchestra, you need to know about the rock orchestra. I'm very excited and honored to be the solo electric cello player. There are two of us and we rotate throughout the tour. So I'll be posting which dates I'll be in the ensemble very soon. But they are going to be coming to the Northeast. So by Northeast, I also am including Florida, Alabama, and then up the East Coast is generally where that tour is going to be taking place. So that's in the fall. If you want to see some really cool rock and roll with a mini orchestra and some phenomenal singers, check them out. Again, they're called the Rock Orchestra. So I'll be rehearsing with them, and that's why we're here early. So I love it. We already have some questions popping up, which is fabulous. And oh, how could I forget the star? This is who you all really want to see. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I'm just a puppet. Just a puppet for cello. So. And thank you all so much for the kind messages. For the person asking about messaging, I am a little bit behind. Been being a bit unplugged recently. But I promise I do look at my DMs and I will get back to you. I promise. It takes me a bit sometimes, but I always try to get back. All right. First question. Have you ever tried a David Samuels bow? I have a chance of buying a bow and it sounds amazing and very balanced. Do you think it's worth it for the long run? So quick answers. No, I haven't tried a David Samuels bow. What I think kind of what my questions are for you. So just to give you dolls an idea, this bow, I don't know what I'm doing, sorry. This bow in question, I will say, is definitely in the upper budget. So what I would ask then is kind of what your goals are for that bow. So if you are currently in a music school or you are on track or you've graduated from music school and you're on the professional track, then, you know, that is kind of what, that's kind of the price range, I think, for a professional bow. If it sounds amazing and feels very well balanced, then those are kind of the two most important things when bow shopping. My advice to you would be, can you see yourself with this bow for a lifetime? Because at that price, that's definitely that is absolutely a lifetime bow price. The other thing I would recommend is go to your teacher, give them your cello, this bow, and tell them, I'm thinking about buying this bow. I would love to hear it on my cello, and please give me your opinion. Because every bow is going to sound different across many cellos. So if you can have someone at a very high skill level, like your teacher, play it and use your cello, you get to sit and have kind of a more objective viewpoint and hear how it sounds. So I would say for that kind of price tag, it would have to be a lifelong investment for your bow. So I hope that helps. Again, I'm sorry, I haven't tried one of those bows before, but I do know that is a higher price tag. But again, if you are on the professional musician track, a lot of people are shocked. I give a range of how much certain things cost, and people are shocked. Our career is very expensive. So that amount of money, again, it is a lot, but if it's a lifelong investment, that's kind of what people spend on their top-notch bows. To give you dolls a comparison, my C string, one string, this C string is $120. One string. It's the most expensive string, but the reason I'm okay with spending that much is because this is my full-time job. I hope that really helps. Again, I can't give a first-hand account for that bow maker, but just to give some food for thought, and the more resources you have to make your decision, the better. So definitely I would bring it to your teacher and have them try it out on your cello. Quick answer to something on Instagram. This is very, very sweet. I would love to listen to your music on Spotify, Cello Doll, which is very thoughtful and kind. And I am on Spotify. So just type in the Cello Doll on Spotify and you will find a collection. I have an album, and then I have a few singles that I've released within the past couple years. A lot of cello covers and some original music. So I am on Spotify. The only thing is if you just type Cello Doll, sometimes it doesn't work. So make sure you type the Cello Doll and it will come up on Spotify. Again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but definitely include the when you type in the Cello Doll. Since you are on Instagram asking about my music, if you go to my bio link, I have links and buttons to, my TikTok, my YouTube, my Spotify. There's a lot of links in that bio link. So if you go to my bio link on Instagram, you will find Spotify on there, and quick and easy. So thank you for your support. I would love for you to check out my music. So now if you didn't know that, now you do. Great. Fantastic. Cool. I am just checking in on the chats. Okay. Let me triple check Chelly's tuning, because you dolls are here on a rare day. It's actually been raining all day here in Las Vegas, which doesn't happen a lot. It's pretty rare, but it's super cozy and spooky weather, which is my favorite. So Chelly is adjusting to the weather because there's actual humidity in the air today. So, okay. Our next question. Oh, hello. Wow, we have someone from Scotland. That's amazing. Oh, this is one of the reasons I love the internet. The internet has a lot of pros and a lot of cons, believe me, but I love this because we get to reach dolls all around the world. That's so exciting. So hello. question, rather than the physical practicing, how do you mentally prepare for a long tour like the rock orchestra? So that's an excellent question. So how do you mentally prepare for a tour? Awesome. Glad you found the Spotify. Fantastic. How do you mentally prepare for a long tour? So a lot of ways. So let's start with non-musical mental preparation. You need to be okay with almost never being alone. And as I think the term is an ambivert, which is someone who has a lot of, if I'm remembering this correctly, this is how I am. I have a lot of extroverted tendencies, but I do like to recharge by being alone. So I love hanging out with a lot of people, and I get a lot of energy from doing that. But I do have a limit where I need to just crash. So just being mentally prepared from that. I mean, we travel on a tour bus, we rehearse together, we often go out and eat a lot of meals together. And to understand that you are going to be around the same group of people for, it could be a couple weeks, it could be a couple months. And on this particular tour, we do have days off. So that definitely allows us to have some alone time, but you have to be okay with relinquishing that. And it really helps because the tour is filled with a lot of really cool people. So very grateful for that. You also have to be really okay with sharing your space, like really sharing a lot of space, where you keep your personal items and clothing and stuff like that. Just really sharing and being a team player, I think, is a big part of the mental preparation on a personal level. And also, the other thing is too, being very prepared in terms of reading the room. So what I mean by that is, let's say I had a really good night's sleep and I'm super jazzed and I'm super excited and I'm like, I have like a lot of energy and I'm buzzing around, and I see somebody and they look tired or like they're upset about something, like, oh, cheer up, and blah, blah, blah. Like, not everybody does well with that. So just being very aware of the personalities around you. And if somebody looks like they need space, just give them some space, So I think one thing I tend to be, and I learned this word because someone described it to me a long time ago, being empathetic. Basically, being able to read people's emotions, which is a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways, but just really being in tune with that and aware. Like if someone's having a rough day, we all have rough days, and to just kind of, if someone says, hey, not feeling it, I need some space today, you just got to do that. So there's a lot of musical challenges, but you also just really have to have this team mentality when you're on tour and sharing a lot of close quarters with people. And then musically preparing myself mentally, I really try to practice the tour music, especially, it's going to sound odd, but especially on days when I'm not feeling well. Like if I have a headache or I didn't get a good night's sleep, that is kind of some mental perseverance to work through. So if I'm not, have a headache or I'm feeling stressed, within reason, I will take out and practice the music, because you never know what's going to happen when you're on the road in a different city every day. And the other thing, this is kind of both mental and physical, is just pacing yourself. That sounds like a lot. Well, you're on the stream with the cello doll. You're going to get a lot. I don't do anything small, baby. Everything's big. And a lot. It is a lot. I mean, these are things. I mean, last year was my in the spring. It already feels so long ago, but in the spring was my first big touring experience, and I learned a lot. So just wanting to share kind of things that I kind of assumed, but ended up being a much bigger part of tour life. But the other thing I'll say musically, really pacing yourself, again, both mentally and physically. And this is kind of hard for me because I really want to like put my everything, like all of my passion and heart into everything I play and everything I do. Well, if you're playing a 2-hour show, you're going to really burn yourself out. So really finding places in the music where I'm playing a supportive line or a bass line or someone else has a solo. Mentally, I can kind of, still keep my accuracy and all of those important things, but kind of turn the energy knob down. So kind of mentally pacing yourself in that sense, both mentally and physically. So those are great questions. I know it's a lot of information, but there's a lot of things to keep in mind if you are interested in pursuing tour life. Again, this is something that was not really talked about when I went to music school. And these are a lot of things that I think should be talked about, because I know a lot of people who do tour life or are interested in touring. So, yeah. If you have siblings, for example, you've already prepared a lot for tour life because there's a lot of sharing, personally and also just physical space you're constantly sharing. Cool. Good question. There's always a lot of things to keep in mind when you're on tour. Also, just be a nice person. Sometimes, I don't know. It seems like common sense, but I won't, get too much on that soapbox. But sometimes, just be a nice person. You'll do great. All right. Ow. Cool. So, what other questions do we have? If no one has any questions, I can definitely just talk about some technical stuff that I have found. Oh, the mask. That's a fun question. So that's actually a very interesting comment. Someone on YouTube asked, how does it feel to wear that mask? And what some people might not know is in the rock orchestra, there are these masks that completely cover our face. And it's like a face mask, but it's covered with jewels that make a skull. They're so fun. They look really, really cool. So how does it feel? It's actually pretty comfortable. I don't feel like claustrophobic or anything. But one thing that was so interesting is I do a lot of facial expressions when I play. And I realized, well, my face is covered. No one's going to see any faces I'm making. If I'm just kind of, or something like a, I'm doing with my face. Nobody. So finding ways to be expressive by moving my body has actually been an interesting challenge for me, because I do show a lot of my character in my face. So that was pretty interesting. The only thing that's a little is we definitely have to have like alcohol wipes because you get sweaty under there. I know it's a little gross, but you get a little sweaty. But they're comfortable. Kind of a fun behind the scenes thing is they cut little pieces of foam so that they fit our bone structure pretty well. They're not like drooping or sliding. So they will put little pieces of foam, like especially by your cheekbones. But they're pretty easy to see out of, which helps. That's a good question. I've never done a show with a full mask on. My volume's very low. Uh-oh. Let's turn it up a little bit. You see? Yep. Okay, I turned that up a little bit. We have another question from Instagram. Oh, someone asked, I don't know if today has a particular topic. Unless I announce a topic in advance, these are all open Q&As. Any advice for someone who wants to return to play cello after a year without playing it at all and maybe 5 years without classes? I was recently in a previously in a conservatory. Sure. Okay. Well, we're getting mixed reviews on the YouTube volume. So I'm just going to turn it up a little bit more just because so y'all, I know I should have a little microphone clip to my shirt. I know, I don't. I prioritize miking the cello and then just projecting with my voice. Maybe that's something to upgrade the cello doll setup, because there's only so many things I can plug into my computer, so we're making it work, but we'll see. Okay, so first piece of advice, find a teacher you really resonate with. And I know, I'm not sure if that is something that you already have, but I think having a one-on-one teacher is really important. You get a lot of individual custom advice. I don't have to tell you that if you went to music school, you know that already, but I would say do some research, take some trial lessons, just to find someone you really resonate with. The number one thing that I think is a common mistake is a lot of people try to pick up exactly where they leave off. So if they were working on a big concerto, they try to start with that concerto, and then they get really discouraged. So I say this with a lot of love. Have realistic expectations. If I took cello off for a year, I couldn't play a lot of the stuff I'm playing, and that's no reflection on you and your ability. That's just what happens if you have to take time off. It's that way with any skill, dancing, the visual arts, anything. If you don't do it for a while, that you get out of touch with it. So just be very kind with yourself. Start going in slow. Sometimes when you take a lot of time off, it's a great chance to reset yourself. So what I mean by that, think about, I would advise when you were, think about when you were at your peak with cello, whatever your top level was. What were some things that you still you weren't quite satisfied with? Maybe it was your projection or your tone, or you felt like you were muscling a lot with the bow, and take that chance to reset the bad habits. Because sometimes it's a lot easier to do that if you take some time off. So I would really think about what were some habits I had that were really hard for me to address, because you're going to want to start with open strings, long tones, very easy. I call it like a cello yoga warm-up, because we're not doing anything super fast. We're just warming up the body, working on form, watching your form. So start with that. Start with things that, general goals that you thought, I want to give that another try. Some technical thing. So I would start with that. And again, be kind to yourself. It will come back. It will come back. It might take more time than you had hoped for, but that's okay. That's okay. For the longest time. Oh, and here's the other thing. It's one of my, I wish I knew who said this. It's a very common quote. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I was not a very happy bean in music school, because I was constantly comparing myself to others. So please don't compare yourself if you're getting back into music and you follow people online who play your instrument. Because, I had a predisposition for cello. I've always had a high dedication for cello, but things didn't really click for me until a little later. And then my progress was just like through the roof, right? But building up to that big growth spurt with cello, I was so unhappy and discouraged. But I persevered through it because I love cello so much, But if I had put more energy on myself and less about what other people were doing, that's really, don't compare yourself. Because at the same time too, like, you have a life story that no one else has, right? So it's really unfair to compare yourself to others. And I hope that's encouraging. I really mean that. And always be in touch with why you love cello. If you don't feel like practicing because you're having a hard day, like, listen to Yo-Yo Ma, Jacqueline Dupre, whoever your favorite cellists are. Just listen to them. Listen to a recording of the piece you're working on. You can make progress without feeling like you're forcing yourself to be at the cello. This is a great comment from YouTube. I know that as an adult beginner, I have to work so much harder than anyone just to get closer to that level where people started young. And I think that's a valid point to bring up. I also think be very much in touch with your goals. So, sorry, I'm just reading some follow-ups here. The other thing, and I really like this comment on YouTube, keep in mind what your goals are, because, like, I'll give an example just that from my point of view. There were some people who were phenomenal at playing orchestral excerpts. Like, they could just sit down and knock out Don Juan and it would be so consistent and beautiful. And I was like, man, I want my Don Juan to be more consistent. And I worked on it when I took an orchestra excerpt class. But then I realized I don't want to be in a classical orchestra. So I think it's really good to know the repertoire as a teacher, and I know what they're looking for when they hear those excerpts. But I was like, why am I comparing myself and that's not a path I see in my career at this time. Favorite thing, I love subbing in classical orchestras. I think it's so fun because I get a little taste of it, you know, but I still have a free schedule and stuff. I gave classes before. Looks good for... Oh, I see. Yeah, the competition, especially, I think from what I understand, they're talking about the competition of teaching. Teaching can be competitive too, definitely. But I think what I'm trying to do with myself that I think has really helped me, if I feel myself fixated or focusing on something, whether it's comparing or it's generally comparing, if it is not serving me or motivating me, I'm not going to give it my time. There's not enough time. There's not enough time. There's not enough time to put all your energy into all of these things that don't serve you or benefit you or motivate you, you know? Don't give it your time. I mean that within reason, of course, you know, because sometimes, like one example, sometimes, well, let me think about this. I mean, again, don't be, I don't know how else to say it, but don't be a jerk about things, right? You still need to be professional and represent yourself well as a musician and an artist. But I mean in terms of things impacting you personally, right? So if you're comparing yourself to somebody, like a bad example would be, oh, they played better than me. Well, that's not motivating you. That's not helping you. But if you see someone and you go, I love the piece they're playing, I want to play that. Well, now you're encouraging and motivating yourself. So that's kind of two examples where one's not helpful, the other is. It's hard to keep practicing for a long period over the day. 1 hour, always, max 2, and it's done. That's a great question. I would highly recommend, I do have a video about making a practicing schedule, especially for students who have like a full 9 to 5 or a family, which is like a 24/7 job, being a parent. I would highly recommend that. And quality over quantity, I think, was the biggest takeaway I made in that video that I wanted people to remember. Yes, if you just go to my channel and search schedule or practice schedule, it should come up. Cool. These are all great questions. I know I'm kind of compulsively checking, but it's been a little finicky today with the tuning. Cool. Great questions, everybody. Let me talk a little bit. Oh, I've had a couple good questions come up over the past week, especially while teaching. So I'm going to jump into some of those because I think they would resonate with a lot of you. And if I see another question, we'll turn and go to that. But one general comment, and let me know if you would like a video on this. I talked with a student about vibrato in thumb position. That was something we talked about a lot. And I have a vibrato boot camp, which is great for beginner and intermediate. But we talked a lot about when you do vibrato and lower up to fourth, your fingers are very horizontal compared to the cello and the cello strings. But when you're in thumb position, your fingers are quite vertical. And if you try to do the exact technique, it's not going to work out. It's going to be very difficult because the angles are all different. So, one thing I talked about a lot is the differences and the similarities. So to kind of really separate those. When you are vibrating in thumb position, I'm going to roll up my sleeve a little bit. You are still going to have the arm rotating, doing it with the wrist, like primarily wrist. It's not going to work. For cello, it applies to other strings, but not cello. Cello, you need the whole arm to be shaking. And it looks like my wrist is shaking. It does. I get that. But that's because it's a chain reaction from what's happening in the arm. So that's a similarity. We still really want the arm, and the wrist is just, it's staying on par with the arm. So the exercise we did was, I keep the thumb position shape. I lift the thumb, I bring it down. So it's not this, because now I'm just lifting my thumb. I kind of roll a little bit of rotation, so my thumb comes off the fingerboard. So you see the underside of my arm, and then I make it disappear. So I kind of tilt. Now when I vibrate, my thumb isn't as, but it's this idea of picking up, putting down, picking up, putting down. And more so when you're down here, it's definitely going to feel more, it's going to feel more this way when you're up here, which is why we did a lot of vibratos. I think I called them like siren slides or something for the boot camp, but here it's very much this motion, up and down. Okay. I'm not doing, because you see I'm not moving up here. Okay, it's subtle, but you don't want to cut off the motion at the wrist. You want the arm to be very proactive in the vibrato motion. So that's a little bit about if you are doing well with your vibrato and you want to start doing it in thumb position. A lot of the stuff is the same, but a lot of it is different. So doing those thumb taps kind of helps with the vertical angle. And that's matching the trajectory of your fingers, right? Because they're very vertical once you're up here. So that was something. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned this a little bit in some of my videos, it has to do with the bow arm elbow. And there's one exception to the low elbow rule, which is something I talk about all the time in my videos, is having a low and cozy bow arm. We've talked about like a flamingo arm. That's okay. Someone said I have a question, but it would be long to explain. I always have long explanations, so it's fine. Please ask your question. And yeah, I would rather give you something custom that will help. But I'll talk quickly about the elbow. But while I'm doing that, please type your question. So I've been talking a lot about smooth bow changes out here, especially on lower stub. So I'm really looping some notes out here, and my I have to lean because Instagram's vertical. I miss horizontal Instagram. Where'd you go? Please come back. It'd be so nice to stream horizontally. But, you know, we have the low V-shape elbow. And then when you get to the last, like, 10% of the bow, that's when you lift the elbow. And that's to get weight in the tip out here. But when I'm done with that, I bring it back in. And that's really important. If you leave it out, if you leave it up, I mean, that's really, really, really uncomfortable. Okay? So if you're told by teachers you're losing volume at the tip, or you kind of have creaky, croaky sounding bow changes, try lifting the elbow a little bit in the last part of the bow, and that's going to kind of give you leverage to bring your weight a little bit on top of the bow. And then once you're done, you release and the elbow folds back in. So we have a question. I love it when we have questions about specific pieces. This is good. We have a question about Suzuki. Fun. I love this one. Hunter's Chorus. That's a personal favorite of mine from the Suzuki books. There are 16th notes. Some of them are fine, starting with a down bow, but somewhere in the middle. So there are 16th notes that start with an up bow. Why is it difficult, and how can I practice it correctly? Sure. I think it's I'm trying to, I could go grab my book, but let me see what I think that's what you're talking about with those notes. I think that's right. Sure. Because those are some up bow 16ths. Okay. So now I'm paranoid it's the wrong spot. Hold on. I gotta look. Dum ba da ba ba ba. Aha! Suzuki 2. Okay. Bar 15. I love bar numbers. Yay! Thank you. See? It wasn't the spot I was playing. So I'm glad I got the book. So, the part in question the second time. So, so that's how you can practice it. Is have your tooth play the G, and then put your first finger on the B. So you need to practice landing with 2, 3, and 4 on the D string, 1 on the A string, because I'm sure you've heard the rule. When you have a 4th finger, you need all 4 fingers down, but that can be spread across multiple strings. We do this a lot for fast passages or if we're playing chords. We spread our fingers out. So that's the first thing I would recommend, is practice landing 1 on B, then the rest of the fingers on the G. You could play it as a double stop, or you could slur it. So the next step is to play, so we have 4 slurred 16th notes. Play one at a time. One at a time. Because sometimes what happens is we feel the anticipation of the part coming up and we kind of tighten up or we get nervous. So what I would have you do and I want you to be that confident. Like really lean in for the up bow. Because when you start cello, we often start with a lot of stuff down bow. Because it's easier, because the weight is all right here. Down bow, down bow, down bow. When you get to an up bow, it's a little harder. Your weight is separated. Your weight is over here. So that's why the up bows are a little harder. So we're just going to make it one note. Just make it the B. And get that really, really comfortable. That's wrong. Then make it. I keep going backwards, sorry. So you could leave the 4th finger down the whole time. You don't have to. It's a preference thing. But if you're, I prep it. Make sure you're not doing this. If your 4th finger's all, I see this in students a lot. The finger, we love the first finger and then this kind of happens because the first finger is easy. You need to keep, so I'm swinging the elbow around. I'm keeping the 4th finger hovering because I need that G. I can't do, like it's not an efficient way. That's why I recommend practicing this. So you get the hand angle and the 4th finger is hovering and close to the string. So that's a lot, but it's one of those things that's deceptively harder than it looks. But it's a great question. So we're kind of addressing left hand and right hand things. So I'm just laughing because they said, I didn't do it dramatically, but in some ways, yes. That was a really fun way to say that. So yeah, I tell people, think of your hand like a helicopter, not an airplane. This idea of hovering, always hovering over the string. So again, left hand. You can try it with just the 4th finger down, that's fine. And then for the bow confidence, to lean in the down bow, comfortable with one note. Okay, that's a great question. Have fun with it. Again, the more, do you change the strings only with the arm, or does it make sense to use fingers? Please, are you talking about the left hand or the right hand? Oh, I love it. We have more questions. The right hand. Okay, that's good. When you're doing adjacent strings, I gotta lean for Instagram. Take those two notes, B and G, and just go back and forth. Just the wrist. A lot of times for neighboring strings, yeah, you just need the wrist. One of the biggest things I talk about in my studio is playing efficiently. You don't need the whole arm to go down to the second string. You also don't have a lot of time. Ba-da-ba-da-dum, bum-bum-bum. You don't have a lot of time to do that. So just a flick of the wrist is much more efficient than the whole arm. So, adjacent strings, most of the time it's wrist. Now, depending on the passage and the dynamic, you might need to figure out the best elbow weight, which might require some adjustments, but generally it's wrist. Okay, this is a great question. Hi, hello on YouTube. For the question on Sammartini, let me know what the question for the vivace of the Sammartini 24 through 28. Would love to know your what specifically about the thumb position spot is giving you some trouble or you find tricky. So I will get that out. And then we have a question. This is a tough question. My teacher won't let me use thumb on 6 through 7.5 position. That's a tough one. There might be a reason for that. It might be that your teacher, let me show the viewers at home what is 6 position. So we have 4th, which is right at the base of the neck. So 5th is when we bump up. It's going to be a half step or a whole step. But basically your first finger is going to go where 2 or 3 is. That's 5th. 6th is where, so that's something. 4, 5, 6, and then 7. And depending on your sharps or flats, the hand shape is going to change a little bit. I'm trying to think. So the reasons, there might be a reason. Just know that sometimes, and I don't know the full history you have with your teacher or what, there's a lot of things I don't know, but sometimes there's a reason for it. It might have to do with your arm. But what I will tell you is if you say you have shorter arms, be careful that you're not swinging your elbow back. Sometimes people really swing back the elbow. Experiment with bringing the elbow around. That can help you to feel more comfortable in this part of the cello. So if your elbow's really back, that's going to pull your hand away. We'll cut legato and decrease tone quality. Well, that's interesting. Because tone quality, that's a bow thing, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Sometimes left hand can affect tone quality, but most of the time it can be the bow too. But I'm going to give my 2 cents. Because I want to, you say you have shorter arms. This is kind of a shortcut if you have shorter arms. Oh, I see. Okay, there's a shift. Okay, this helps. Thank you for that extra context. That's really helpful. I mean, the thing is, I do need to bring my thumb up for vibrato. I mean... this might be an exercise for consistency and intonation. But again, really make sure you're not... what I tell people to do with their cello is when you're sitting at your cello, tap the side that's by your C string, and then bring your arm over. And that's going to give you a really good elbow height. Rather than like trying to float it over here, sometimes that's hard for people to have that mind-body connection. So I have people tap this side, and then you bring the hand kind of horizontally. You float it over to thumb position. In your case, I would have, and then kind of bring the thumb back. Don't hook the thumb too far behind. Let me rotate. You can't, that's not, I have too many things in my setup. You can put the thumb on the side here. That might be a good compromise. Sometimes I do swing my thumb around because if I have something, if I have to really come back, or if I have to do something really fast, sometimes having the thumb back will help you to get back. Okay. Yeah, so notice if you're going from B to B, my thumb is on closer to the side than behind. So again, kind of where the wood is starting to meet the darker wood of the fingerboard. You could experiment with swinging your thumb around. But one thing I do want to show, maybe not in this context, so please don't go to your teacher and say, Cello Doll said this. Please don't, anyone watching, please don't do that to your poor teacher who's really, because I don't know their plan. I don't know anything about their method. So I'm going to show you not this B to B shift, but you're going to have a shift someday where you got to go big. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So, and please, I'm not insinuating that this person would do this at all. Oh, that's fun. Okay, I'm glad your teacher likes me. That's great. No, I promise. This is just a general disclaimer for these live streams. I don't mean it towards anyone in particular. The end. Okay. So someday you're going to have a bigger shift than an octave shift. And your teacher does bring up an excellent point. We don't want the shift to have a bump, a lag. We don't want to bring the thumb up. So this is a great exercise I got from a teacher where I'm gonna try a 2 octave shift. So you bring the thumb up and around, and then you shift. So that brings the thumb up and around. So if the thumb is up from the get-go, you're gonna have no interruptions, which is great. Otherwise, like you have to bring it up halfway through and you're changing the angle of your hand. I'm not even consistent. And it doesn't sound as clean. So it's this idea of swinging from the elbow up and around. You bring the thumb physically on top, whee, and then you slide. Just a sneak peek for when you do bigger shifts. For the B to B, I mean, that's okay. I have small hands but long arms, so my circumstance is a bit different. I have a hard time beyond C, leaving my thumb behind, but feel free to swing it around like this. You don't have to keep it deep behind the neck. And again, check out that elbow angle, that you're not angling it back, because that's going to pull your hand away. Cool. Yeah, sure. I'm glad you find that helpful. Sorry, yeah, you're welcome. You're most welcome. My thinking face often confuses people. I promise I'm not upset. I'm intently reading. How much bow length and bow weight? Yes. Okay, we're gonna go back to Sammartini. Sammartini. Yeah. Sure. So this part, this is a very delicate thumb position spot. It involves the thumb on a solid note. Gotta get cozy in my chair. So that's the passage. The bow weight's going to depend on the dynamics a little bit. But in general, I find when you go higher up, you need a little more weight and a little less speed. Little heavier, slower bow speed. If you use too much bow, you can kind of get away with it in the lower. But kind of sounds like watered down milk or something. The sound's not as thick. And I really think it has to do with the fact that we're shortening the strings so much. So without any fingers, you get the full length. The minute you put your finger down, you shorten the length of the string. So I would play the lowest note and the highest note. So you're basically in E octaves. And you'll notice you need a little more weight on the D string because it's a thicker string. So make sure your fingers are prepared, otherwise that will happen. You'll get a little. So I think the biggest challenge is having that change between the A string and D string. I think that is a tricky part about this passage. I really wish I could say there's one weight you need and everything's going to be great. I mean, they're pretty close. So in thumb position, a little less speed, more weight, and the change between the A and D string is a little subtle. Yeah, of course. The other thing you could do, honestly, because you're just on E for most of it with the thumb, just play the A string pitches. Get comfortable with the A string pitches only, and really get a consistent tone quality. So we have... Just kind of play around with those pitches, then add the E in. Because if you really get the A string bow weight comfortable, you're going to build that muscle memory, and then once that muscle memory on the A string is really strong, it's going to be more likely to be consistent when you switch. All right, we have one more question. Going back to some rock and roll stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. I only have time for one question. Okay, I'll do two really quick. These are the last two questions. Okay? Because I have to go back and practice tour music. Are you able to bend notes like guitar players do? If not, can you emulate it? So it's really hard. Frets are what really, from my understanding, allow guitar players to bend their pitches. So if you watch a guitar player, they are physically pulling the string, and it brings the half pitch up about a half step. So you actually physically see them pulling the string. My understanding is the frets really help with that. So if you have a fretted electric string instrument, you can do it. On a regular cello, I mean, it actually does it a little bit. Wait a minute. But you don't hear it on the A string, which is interesting. It's definitely not the full amount. Guitarists definitely get a half step in there. But the other thing too, you are pulling the string under the bow. So while you're trying to keep a consistent bow quality, bow speed, bow weight, everything, you're wiggling the string underneath the bow, which is going to cause the tone quality to kind of suffer because you're moving the string back and forth under horsehair, essentially. Guitar players pick, so it's one impulse and that's it. Even when I pluck, you definitely, well, the C string, you actually have a little ridge under it, so you can't really bend. You hear that happening? On the D string, it's working. I'm surprised. Only on the D string. At least on my cello. So to emulate it, I usually do a slide. One of the first guitar solos I really paid super close attention to. It's from My Chemical Romance, Famous Last Words. So I do these little scoops with my finger. Blah, blah, blah. And it's wait, that's the note. Okay. Had a brain fart. I mean, that's kind of a little sneak peek of it, but have to do these like little, we call them kind of scooping into the pitch. These like micro slides. But the thing that's hard about that is you have to have really precise intonation, because if you do these micro scoops and you land on a different D, well, that was the pitch. It was a D every... You always want to come back to the same pitch. If it... Like, it doesn't sound good. So you have to be real. You have to have a really strong foundation before you mess around with scooping. But that's basically kind of what I do to help emulate. So the reason also that I slide, because when a guitar player, you have to think about the pick. A guitar pick is like a bow. So they pluck the string once, they bend, or when they do that, you don't hear a second impulse, a second pick, because that would be a second note in the rhythm. So that's why I slur when I scoop. And by slurring, so I'm not going, because now those are just two separate pitches. I'm doing it in one bow to emulate the one pluck of the guitar pick. So that's your little mini lesson on guitar bending. How would you add some value without knowing the song? In terms of playing with others, let's say guitar and singers, how to add, this sounds like a collaboration question, and I think it's a good one to end on. When I'm playing with other people, always ask what their vision for the song is, what they're looking for. What I will say is, there's kind of, to say this very simply, or this is going to sound very black and white, and it's not intended to sound this way, but just for the sake of time, you can either join an instrument that's already playing or do something completely different, but still complement the song. So you can either double another guitar, you can play with the drum kit, you can harmonize with the vocal line. That's kind of joining another instrument as a team. Or let's say you have a rhythmic guitar really chucking along. You have a very busy drum part. Sorry, I'm miming as I'm talking. The cello could play something very lyrical, like long tones over it. So I think it's just kind of talking and communicating and being open to what the song needs, whether it needs more power in a section or it needs something very different. A lot of people love the lyrical quality of cello. So that's usually a pretty common ask. But again, if you're playing with a singer, I know this is going to sound, unless it's specifically asked, do not play the same notes as the singer. I can't tell you how many arrangements I see that, where it's just kind of, you're just on the singer. And it's cool if you want to make like a hybrid instrument of a person's voice with the cello. That's cool. Do it if that's your intention. But when I work with other players and I have and I'm arranging a part, I really try to not step on the toes of what's already going on, if that makes sense. Don't step on the toes of what's already going on. Because, sometimes if I'm playing with a male singer, I'll play higher cello. If I'm playing with a female singer, I'll play lower cello. Just so we're not because if you have everything unison, the texture gets thin, right? If you're sharing the same pitch, the texture becomes this versus this. And oh, I see. The main problem is which notes to play and what to practice. See if you're going to be playing with a band, ask them to record a rehearsal. I know a lot of bands will do this for people. You ask for a recording of a run-through of a song, and that way you have a live example to practice along to. That would be very helpful. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Someone could record it on a phone towards the back of the room or something, just so you have a reference, and that way you can try things by ear. Having the key is also great. If they have a chord chart, that's even better. Sometimes you won't get a chord chart, so it's a good exercise to play with a live recording by ear. It's a good question. We are out of time though, so that's what I will offer for now, but it's a really great thing. Practice playing with YouTube videos, favorite songs. That's a great way. I do that to practice sometimes if you can't get a chord chart, or ask the band you're going to be playing with to send you a recording or a rehearsal recording so you can practice playing by ear. All right, my dolls, thank you so much. This was a fabulous live stream. As always, thanks to all of you and your questions. Shelly and I will be back in October for our next live stream. As I'm sure is not a shock, October is my favorite time of year. So excited. And we'll have to think of something special. Maybe I'll come in costume for the live stream or something. We will see. But thank you all so much. You all come with excellent, thought-provoking questions. I love it. I really hope you found this live stream helpful. Thank you. And special thanks to Shelly for being here. My partner in crime. Well, celloing, at least. So we're going to go off and practice more tour music to get ready for rehearsals next week. Follow along on Instagram and socials. I'll probably post a couple photos while I'm traveling because it's always fun. And thank you. We will see you next month, and happy practicing.